We're going to talk about Nancy Pelosi's gay husband and why she's upset that they outed Paul Pelosi as a homosexual man. Okay? That's right. But before we talk about that, all of you that are unsubscribed are going to be outed as people who are ad watchers. At the top of the hour, that is, of course. Here is Nancy Pelosi.
You alluded to this when I asked about your husband, but I just want to ask specifically and kind of point blank about the fact that there has been such extremism, such political violence, and what happened to your husband was horrific. Do you think that that had an impact on voters as they cast their ballots?
No. Dude, come on. No shot. I mean, I think like political extremism, political violence is like is going to genuinely like fucking make people go, that's a little fucked up. You guys should stop that. But do I think that like people cared? I think people probably cared more about people being immediately turning around and being like, Paul Pelosi's gay, actually. Like that shit was crazy. But ultimately, I don't think it had like a genuine. It had like a genuine impact on driving people to the fucking polls. Like that's crazy to me.
I don't. I know that what people tell me that's anecdotal, and we always say the plural of anecdote is not data necessarily, but it is a trend in what I'm hearing. But it wasn't just the attack; it was the Republican.
Okay, she's actually handling it gracefully. No, she's right. She's right. I thought she was straight up going to be like, yeah, it's because of that people went out and voted. No, she's right. It's not that, but it is yet another, the Paul Pelosi attack and the subsequent like conspiracies from the Republican Party was just another, it was like Donald Trump getting COVID right before the election, right? It was just another reminder to Americans that like, these guys are fucking insane. So on that note, she is correct. Like it was just, it was basically like another, pushing the button moment where it was like, hey, remember, by the way, we're still fucking freaks.
Reaction to it, which was disgraceful. And that, I think, really, the attack is horrible. Imagine how I feel as the one who was the target and my husband paying the price and the traumatic effect on our family. But that trauma is intensified by the ridiculous, disrespectful attitude that the Republicans, and there's nobody disassociating themselves from the horrible response that they gave.
That is wild. Republicans didn't even fucking say, oh man, I really condone this political violence. They immediately went on, yeah, well, we're going to still send Nancy's ass back home to be with her husband, Or they straight up were just like, yeah, no, this violence, it's bad, wrong. Yeah, it's not our guy. He's gay. Like, they didn't even do any of that. They just moved straight into, like, conspiracy theories about how the guy was a gay guy. And so was Nancy Pelosi's husband, who was also gay. Pretty wild. Like, Tucker Carlson literally just immediately moved on from the situation, didn't even wash his hands of the violent actions or whatever. He didn't even fucking do the classic. Remember, the first thing I said when this happened and I saw the Republican reaction, one of the first things I thought that was strange is like, normally they would say, oh, well, if Paul Pelosi had a gun, he would have been able to defend himself or whatever. They didn't even do that. They didn't even do the normal high notes. Like, they didn't even hit like the regular talking points like, oh, well, imagine if he had a gun, he would have been able to defend himself. They just straight up said, it's because Nancy Pelosi has defunded the police, and it's because Paul Pelosi is gay. Hey, would you look at that? I mean, yeah, this is typical. This is old news. For those of you who don't know, Nancy Pelosi, the U.S. needs a strong Republican Party, not a cult. She said that back in the day, and they still maintain that position. They're fucking awful. I despise anyone that says that because there is no such thing as a strong Republican Party. The strong Republican Party is strongest when they have a galvanizing force that they can coalesce around, like Donald Trump, who will, crank up the extremism dial in the way that, even all the fucking swine, even all the fucking hogs on the ground can understand. So these guys are fundamentally, on principle, just fucking delusional when they act like there is a supposed Republican Party out there that is going to be different than the very successful Republican Party, which was successful under Donald Trump's reign.
To it.
So you think that turned
further into that?
That turned voters off?
They tell me so.
I think, like, even if they tried to tie that to a crime narrative, they still would have gotten fucking eviscerated. You want to know why? Because, like, a lot of normal people recognize that, like, people like Nancy Pelosi are old curmudgeons who fucking also want to fund the police and shit. Like, there has never been a moment where Nancy Pelosi said, there has never been a moment where Nancy Pelosi was like, yeah, we need to, like, fucking even reform the police. You know what I mean? They just straight up were like, nah, dog, we love the cops. Like, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, these guys are like, I will literally suck off a cop if I can. Okay? So to have them stick with the Democrats want crime narrative is a little laughable, especially at a time when crime is not even up. That's the other part of this equation. Like, yes, people see homeless people and think that's crime. That's not crime, and the numbers show it, right? One of the most formative things I saw, I think it was like a New York like Police Benevolence Association tweet. I can't remember where the tweet was. Maybe one of you guys can find it. One of the things that fucking blew my mind was immediately after the midterm elections were over, one of like the New York PBA or like the Sergeants Benevolence Association or whatever came out and immediately talked about how because of our successful officers, like crime is actually down now. It's like, motherfucker, you literally ran on crime popping off for months, for a year, claiming that it was because, the brave boys in the blue weren't getting sucked off hard enough. And then the moment that the fucking election cycle is over, you're like, oh, actually, crime is down. It's so fucked up. Because it was down the whole time. Oh, it was Albuquerque. Yeah. Here it is. Thank you, chatter. Now that the campaign season is over, I want to clear up the claims about Albuquerque's crime stats. Over 5 years overall, property and violent crime are down, thanks to police officers, detectives, professionals throughout APD. Openly stating that's kind of fucking insane. Like, I needed to look up to see if this was, like, actually real. You know what I mean? Because it's not even verified. And even if it was verified, I don't even know. But Chief Harold Medina's page is not constantly monitored. Please call 911 for emergency assistance. How fucking insane is that, dude? New Mexico saw Dems win almost every race, including many who were highly favored for GOP. Anyway, just remember that shit, dude. Just remember that. Okay? Like, on crime as a trend has been trending downwards for years and years and years and years and years. They never got defunded. They collaborated with local news to fucking claim that crime was up. Okay? And even at that time when the fucking police chiefs were lying, okay? Even at that time when the police chiefs were openly fucking lying, what did I do? I told you so many times. I'm like, this is a lie. This is a lie. This is a lie. There's empirical evidence to suggest that this is a fucking lie. This is quite literally a lie. Nationwide, local news coverage made it seem like there was a massive fucking crime wave happening, when there was never a massive crime wave happening. It was just this year's version of the immigrant caravan, okay?
You've talked about...
I got to pee. I'll be back in a second.
Republican Party.
Yes.
House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy, he's working the phones, probably as we speak, trying to firm up the votes he needs to become Speaker if Republicans do, in fact, take the House. As somebody who has been Speaker for a combined 8 years, do you think Kevin McCarthy has what it takes to be Speaker of the House?
Let's just get through the election, okay? They haven't won yet. They've been measuring for draperies. They've been putting forth an agenda. They haven't won it yet. Let's after the election is concluded, depending on who is in the majority, there'll be judgments made within their own party, in our own parties, as to how we go forward. It's not up to me to make any evaluation of what their possibilities are.
You are uniquely qualified to understand what it takes to be Speaker of the House.
Yeah, I do.
Does he have it?
But why would I make a judgment about something that may or may not ever happen? No, I don't think he has it, but that's up to his own people to make a decision as to how they want to be led or otherwise. What is important, though, is that this election has been a victory for the people, for the candidates who had the courage to run in the face of any predictions, for the grassroots people, VIPs, our volunteers in politics, knocking on millions of doors to get out the vote. Don't ever underestimate. Now, see, I'm a former party chair, so I'm own the ground. You have to own the ground. And owning the ground took us to the place that we are now, much closer to victory than anyone would have predicted. And of course, our president, President Biden, and President Obama being out there to make people aware of the importance of this election and that the prospects were that we could win, to offset some of the punditry that were wedded to the past when we know elections are about the future. But
honest question, why is crime trending downwards if material conditions are worsening and poverty is increasing? That's a good question. Because ultimately, America is still benefiting from being the labor aristocracy. And ultimately, conditions are bad, adjusted to the conditions of those who have a lot. But ultimately, they're still not that bad. I say this all the time. Especially when it comes to being able to feed yourself. As long as you keep the bread theory, as long as you keep bread prices stable, as long as people can still buy bread, as long as people can still buy, Happy Meals and food at the dollar store or whatever, it's not bad enough that people are going to straight up fucking go out and do crazy shit. They are bad relative to when crime was higher. I think that's the chatter's point. No, I don't think the material conditions are bad relative to when the crime was higher. It's not. Also, one of the leading theories on why crime is lower across the board, and this is one of the few instances where Sam Cedar himself also will say this as well. One of the leading theories on why crime is lower overall in comparison to the 80s, 90s is the decrease in lead in gasoline, which I also happen to agree with, considering that it has gone down almost globally. Like decrease in lead and paint and gasoline. Lead contamination and lead poisoning demonstrably led to aggressive behavior, violent outbursts, aggressive behavior, all this type of shit. Like, it has literally been proven. That's why there's the meme of like the lead poisoned boomers versus the microplastic poisoned zoomers. Our era is the era of our era is the microplastic gay zoomers. Okay? And it's not boomers. When I say boomers, I'm talking about Gen X, obviously. Like the fucking parent-teacher conference. Like, every time you see someone going fucking absolutely brazy at a parent-teacher conference, they are perfectly in that range of lead poisoning. Literally. Who'd you vote for? Crime. Pro-crime. So what you're saying is lead paint made everyone irrational and microplastics made everyone gay? Yes, that's what I'm saying. What do you think about the whole abortion theory, that because abortions were legalized, that led to a decrease in crime? Maybe. I love when people try to fucking turn that into like, oh, well, you're racist then because you're making a eugenics argument because black people get more abortions. It's like, no, dumbass. It's about poor people, okay? It's people who do not have the means to take care of a child, okay? That's it. You are the one saying it's black people. You are the one who is turning it into it's a black people argument because you are the one who is racist. Big self-report there.